It's because of this spirit, this great decency and great strength, that I have never been more hopeful about America's future than I am tonight. Despite our hardships, our union is strong. We do not give up. We do not quit. We do not allow fear or division to break our spirit.
President Obama at his State of the Union offering up a little bit of hope, a little bit of fear, a little bit of prodding to Democrats and Republicans alike.
And a promise to stay the course. I'm Jonathan Karl. Top Line begins right now.
Welcome to ABCNews.com's Top Line. I'm Rick Klein, joined by Jonathan Karl today up on Capitol Hill. Every day at noon Eastern Time, we bring you the latest political news, insight, analysis, everything you need to know about politics before you head out that door to lunch. And it's twitter.com/thenote to stay informed all day long. John, kick us off.
Well, Top Line number one, the speech. We just heard from Speaker Pelosi. She called it masterful. A top Republican senator called it a political tirade. So I guess, Rick, whatever you think of the speech, the one thing that it did not do was bridge that partisan divide.
I guess not. I guess we'll have to wait. As President Obama said, he didn't expect to do that in his first year. He didn't do it in a speech either. Ideologically, it seemed to me all over the map. We had a little bit for everybody, taking on a little bit of everybody, and probably enough to like or dislike for anyone who was listening. The path. It just might be that health care reform is back on track. Speaker Pelosi says she's confident, although some might question her vote counting on this, that they can get 218 votes for a kind of complicated maneuver that would involve the House passing the Senate bill and then the budget reconciliation process, which changes the math and the equation in the Senate. This is a difficult thing to pull off, but it's for the first hopeful sign we've seen for health care since that Massachusetts election.
Yeah, but Rick, guess what? This fix that she wants to pass in the Senate under reconciliation, I am told would cost $300 billion. So that would be $300 billion on top of the $848 billion in the underlying Senate health care bill. I just don't see this really flying anywhere. So top line number three, job one. Now the big pivot is away from health care and to jobs. And Democrats in the Senate are working on trying to put together a jobs package that follows much of what the president talked about in his speech. And Rick, what I am told is the way they are going to come out of the box on this is with something that is almost exclusively tax cuts, tax credits, tax incentives. In other words, the kind of things that they think can pull over some Republican support, basically daring the Republicans to come on board.
And very similar to what we saw President Obama talk about last night. There were big chunks of that speech where you say this could be a Republican talking. You're right, though. It changes the calculus if you're trying to oppose everything the president is doing. And finally, the Reagan revolt. A purity test is on the agenda in Honolulu, of all places, where the RNC is having its winter meetings. Chairman Michael Steele says he's opposing it. He says this is the last kind of thing you'd want to see a political party do. But Michael Steele, you may recall, doesn't have all the juice that he used to inside the Republican Party. And there may be an effort to try to clip his wings, although this isn't expected to pass. It is a challenge to his leadership.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And remember, that is a very pure Republican party down there when you get down to the Republican National Committee. An idea like that certainly wouldn't fly here on Capitol Hill among Republicans here who want to get the majority, purity or impurity.
Indeed it is. And we're joined now from Capitol Hill by Congressman John Dingell, a Democrat of Michigan, the Dean of the House of Representatives, and maybe the man who has been in the room for more states of the Union than any person on the planet. Congressman Dingell, thanks for being here.
The first one I was at was in 1933 when I was 6 years old with my dad.
Wow. So that goes back quite a ways. Well, I'd ask you to rank it, but I'd be afraid where President Obama could possibly rank. But what's your reaction coming out of it? Did you hear out of this a message that can kind of get Democrats back on track, get the Obama administration with a message that can carry you through this year?
Well, I thought the president's speech was very conciliatory. He called for bipartisanship and pointed out there are many things on which the Democrats and the Republicans can and should work together. And he pointed out that people want and expect this. He came out with the fact that we are going to need to have a jobs bill, which we desperately need, with 10% of our people and more unemployed. He talked about continuing the health care bill, which is a matter of desperate urgency to this country because health care costs are going to equal the gross domestic product in 2080. And if we don't do something about it, Medicare is going to go broke and Medicaid is going to break the states. Now, beyond that, he talked about education so that we can compete, seeing to it that our trading partners treat us fairly in the world marketplace and that we adequately enforce our laws and see to it that our trading partners treat us fairly and honestly.
So Congressman, you are also, you have the record for the most times introducing a health care bill, I believe, as well. This has really, in many ways, been your baby. I mean, this is something you have pushed harder than anybody. What is your sense, though? Is it going to happen? If so, what kind of timeline? I mean, we heard from Harry Reid just a few days ago that, quote, there's no rush when it comes to passing health care reform.
Well,
what's your sense?
You would have me be a prophet. That I'm not. I could give you some good informed speculation, but I can say that there is a desperate need for this. It was Republican strategy that they would kill the health care bill in 1994 and see to it that no other legislation passed. And to the great misfortune of the country, it was a tactic which worked. We lost health care. We didn't have a good record in that Congress, and the Republicans took over in the next election. We have to see to it, first of all, that the bad politics of that does not obtain. But we have to see to it that the nation's business is done. And again, the president has invited the Republicans to work with the Democrats to try and see to it that the nation's business is conducted in a bipartisan fashion.
But is Harry Reid right, though? Is there no rush? I mean, I get the sense talking to senators, Democratic senators, that this thing is going nowhere quickly.
Well, remember that the longest couple hundred yards in the world is the distance between the House of Representatives in Washington and the United States Senate. I'm not sure I agree or disagree with Harry Reid. He's got the Senate to contend with, and I'd rather let him judge what's going to happen. My personal feeling is that there is a great urgency to all of this business, but there's one good rule legislatively, and that is make haste slowly, but continuously and vigorously.
Should the House, do you think, or could the House pass the Senate bill as is and then work on some kind of fixes as part of the budget process?
The leadership is now contemplating these questions, and I have to say that I greatly regret that this is above my pay grade, but I think this is one of the things that has to be considered, and I hope that if it is done, it will be done in a way which assures, first of all, the passage of a health bill, but second of all, which assures that health bill will either be in proper form or properly modified so it will meet the great concerns of this nation.
Okay, I want to get in one more question about the theatrics, about the atmospherics of the State of the Union speech, because you've been there for so many. Have you noticed a trend, I mean, in terms of a response? I mean, we always have this kind of partisan difference, who's standing up, who's not. What kind of a trend do you notice?
Well, Washington has gotten more and more and more partisan. You heard the president's comments last night about how the nation has gone to a kind of gotcha politics. That's true in the media. It's true on the part of members. And we're looking less to the well-being of the country than we are to the next election and who's scoring brownie points at a particular time. It's always been my feeling this is a very bad situation. The president pointed out that it is not consistent with the public interest, and I'm hopeful that the message got through. I will simply observe that the first speech I attended, there was a much more sedate and a much more uniform and gracious response. Now, remember, this was 1933, and I was 6 years of age. I have to point out to you that the world has changed significantly, and we're vastly more partisan today than we ever were before.
Indeed. Congressman John Dingell, Democrat of Michigan and the Dean of the House of Representatives, we're honored to have you on. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for your kindness.